my guests, the panel, could come up. We're going to close the session with a panel. We've got a really interesting bunch of people coming up. So I have Tanya David from Finecast, who's doing a lot of work in addressable TV. Sean Lohman from Agile. You heard a little bit about Agile previously on High Pages, but they're doing some amazing innovation in that space. Praful, who is actually doing a lot of work, he's from TV Squared around attribution. And then Josh, who is the head of data and digital audiences for Network 10. So if you guys could come up and join the stage, that'd be great.
I am not Tony David.
You're not? Oh, you are not either. So, okay. I might get you to jump over some of these questions, if that's right. Okay, so before we start, I think probably the best thing to do is, instead of me trying to talk about what you guys do, because it's all very different, if you could give us a couple of minutes on an elevator pitch on what your organisations do and what you're doing to deliver innovation through television.
Yes. Late swap out. I am not Tanya David. My name is Brett Paul. I'm the MD of Finecast. Finecast is an addressable TV business, and we spend, well, actually most of our time working with clients to help them understand. It's a pretty new space. 2019 was a big education year for us, and what we actually do is we help planning of addressable television, and we create audiences to activate on by partnering with broadcasters to create unique integrations to actually create the addressable component.
Great, thanks.
Right, I'm Sean Lohman. I'm the founder and Chief Innovation Officer of Agile Media. So Agile basically delivers digital-like metrics for TV. That's from measurement, optimization, activation, and we work with agencies, broadcasters, clients, and technology providers across the world. So we're an Australian business. We're based in Australia, up in Queensland. However, we get a lot of traction overseas by really delivering real-time opportunities to TV. What digital has enjoyed for so long, TV now is having the opportunity to leverage.
Cool. Hi, I'm Josh. So you've heard lots from the 10 people today. Thanks, guys. Look, from an innovation perspective, you heard lots about our data strategy. That's kind of my baby, my heartland. We're investing a lot there, so you'll see that grow and continue to evolve. From a user experience perspective and new ad formats, we've just shown you what UI will do for us, and that's going to be a really interesting and dynamic space for us, especially through our digital properties. And then our parents, our Viacom CBS family, mum and dad, they're going to give us a lot of, I guess, well, there's fiscal stability, but there's also a lot of access to new content, and we're a good test market for them. You know, we're English speaking. There's a bunch of stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to look forward to in the coming years for 10 and our wider ecosystem.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Praful Desai. I'm a business development director with TV Squared from last 18 months. TV Squared is a global provider of TV attribution. We work with thousands of brands in multiple countries, and 70 plus countries are using our platform. We help agencies, publishers, all the brands directly in optimizing TV and drive accountability. So TV Squared is one of the most important currency in terms of driving accountability. Thank you.
Great, thanks guys. So Brett, I might start with you. Last year at this conference, there was a lot of talk around addressable television and how it was going to, change and evolve the industry. 12 months on, what's sort of driving interest in addressable TV, and in your view, what's actually restricting its adoption?
And it was a huge year in 2019. We were pretty young here last year when we sponsored this event, and 2019 it really took off. Although there's a lot of education, so I'd say one thing that's probably holding it back a little bit is we need more of this. I mean, we need more education out in the market. There's a lot of traditional TV buyers that, although excited about the space, just need to know more. And there's a big planning step to go through when you're sort of shifting a kind of traditional TV plan, for example, into a more modern TV plan that represents the audience. The audience is actually what's driving this for me. In terms of what's making it move forward is the adoption of. We'll start with hardware. The hardware penetration in the Australian market is just going up. The chart is going up and to the right? So it's about, I think in this year, it's about 14 million devices in households, and there's multiple devices in households that can carry an addressable TV message now. So the supply, I guess, from a device perspective is there. The broadcasters have done a huge job in terms of investing in their, as you just saw, I guess, in their experience.
Yeah.
That's driving it forward as well. And, you know, apart from education sort of it being a work in progress in terms of what's holding it back, I don't want to be cliche about the measurement, which has come up several times so far. But, you know, to build on top of that, I'd love to see more insights in the ecosystem as well. And we sort of work just within the BVOD ecosystem at the moment. But that's I mean, overall, very successful story. A little cliche on the measurement, I'm sorry about that, but to stick on top of that, insights, I'd say.
I mean, it's a hard one to step away from when you get down to measurement, because clients do want to know and understand what's actually going on in that space. So to that point, I might actually throw over to you, Praful, and just say, you know, you've talked about having a measurement solution, and when we chatted the other day, you were like, I've got the answer. And I'm really going to get you in for a meeting at some point to see more. But talk to me about how you are improving attribution and what the measurement journey looks like. And, you know, in a context of, you know, I get asked every day from CFOs and CMOs and CEOs, you know, what's my money delivering? Am I getting an ROI? Is it actually working for me? I mean, how are you answering those questions, and how is it different to what's currently available?
Absolutely. Now, I think what you are saying is true. Still, there is a bit of a pressure, all the CMOs basically in delivering accountability, and that's where TV Squared comes into the play. We not only deliver for linear, but BVOD, catch-up TV and all, and accountability plays a very important role in delivering the challenge. And we not only work with media agencies or only brands, but overall, from a holistic perspective, we can deliver the solution which helps them to deliver their own accountability. And that's how we are playing a very niche and a specialized role in the environment currently.
Yeah.
And answering the Brett's thing as well. In fact, we are talking to Finecast, and some point of time we could be providing a measurement solution to them.
Right, great. Okay.
I'll just step in there. I think one of the big issues we've got with measurement, particularly when it comes to TV, is the fact that there's lots of methodologies, but transparency is a big question. And actually not having black box solutions. And I think really what's going to make a big difference, and what you know, the data that we're helping people like Finecast and attribution partners is fully accountable, fully transparent data. If you start with the raw data that everybody can challenge, everybody can understand, you can sense check it and you know, check it against Nielsen data. You have to wait, you know, quite a few weeks until that comes through. But then you have the transparency, you have that confidence, and you can therefore make decisions and move forward.
Yeah. So it's a really great point. I might ask a question about that. You're involved in the High Pages work, and you were tracking the in-program mentions in real time. Talk to me around how your technology is being used to drive growth for clients, and to understand sort of cause and effect from different activities.
Yeah, absolutely. So High Pages was a fantastic case study. Very seldom do you get an advertiser that's so new to TV. And you can really measure quite cleanly. So that doesn't happen all the time. But fundamentally what we do is we observe what's happening. So in real time we observe what's happening on TV. So we had looked at 10's new technology before, and they're talking about how complicated the AI is and how long it takes to process. Well, our technology is in absolute real time. And I think in between these sessions you can actually see our technology watching TV in real time. So we actually are observing what's happening on TV, and that's down at a product level, that's down to in-program integrations on High Pages. So that's in real time. We're then observing what's happening on a client's website in real time. So we're watching and observing, we're not modeling after the event. So the data that we're collecting is observed data in the moment, and then we can provide that data to help. There was a moment marketing question before, so we work with moment marketers. We work with agencies, or we can connect to your Facebook, your AdWords, your account to amplify the message. But the key thing about being in real time and being observed is then you can actually test and refine, because you can get a real-time feedback loop. And if you've got a real-time feedback loop, your learning is accelerated, because you can then have a hypothesis, because they're not connected. We're not going to pretend that there's an idea exchange between people's TVs and their devices. That doesn't happen. But if you get a real-time feedback loop, you can actually have a change, see the effect, and start test refining. And that's really what bringing the digital methods that we've, over 20 years have been refined to TV is all about.
Yeah, which I think is really great, because when clients are talking about investing in sponsorship, the premiums that they take to do that, and the activation of cost around some of those sponsorships, it's really great to sort of get more science behind what those are delivering. So
it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, what type of integration? We don't want it to be overt. We actually want it to further the program itself.
Yeah.
We want to engage. We actually want to know what works better and for which type of brand in what context as well.
Yeah.
If you've got the data, you can actually make informed decisions.
Great, yeah. So Josh, I'm going to move over to you now. So big changes going on over at Network 10. I think most people know that you guys have been on a bit of a transformation journey to sort of catch up and evolve and move towards a leadership sort of view on what you're doing there. What's changed over at 10 in the recent times, and what are you guys doing to grow television through innovation?
Oh, big question. I think, look, I don't say we're going through changes. We're kind of executing changes that we've been making previously. So we're kind of in the doing part now. The challenge is that it takes time. Like all this stuff, even your point now around measuring things, when you're selling in sponsorships and so on, they take time, pretty complicated. So for us, look, CBS, Viacom, CBS, excuse me, that's going to take a little bit of time to materialize. I think it's still very early. For now, we are fiscally stable. That gives us breathing room. If anyone knows our background, then we come through a challenging time. The sun's up for us, it's looking bright. There's a lot of positivity. We've also had the time to invest in new things like data. We've spun up a brand new team. We brought sales back in-house. These are significant investments, right? There's more than 250 people that have come into the business in the space of a year, excuse me.
Yeah.
That takes time. The other part is it's allowed us to launch new formats in the market. So last year we launched the Masked Singer. That's new. We're in English-speaking markets, so we're great as a test case for our international markets. That was hugely successful. So there's a lot of those things that have come through. And then from a digital point of view, UI is going to be pretty phenomenal for us. I know we've spoken a little bit about the efficiencies. There's new ad formats. It's going to be a great way for us to deliver content to audiences consistently. It's a very, very challenging thing, and that's the number one thing, regardless of ads, measurement, etc. Someone switches on a platform and wants to watch a show. If it doesn't work, that's not good.
No.
That's a kind of cornerstone of all this stuff. But for us to start rolling out things like data application to connect to TVs, to do things in a bit more of a programmatic way, etc. We talk a lot about being able to trade consistently and to also make it easier for people to trade with us. And it's the heartland. Everything we're building is not for one particular aspect of our business, but we need to service a small to medium client that sits in Perth the same way we service an enterprise client that's in Sydney or Melbourne with the same love, care, or they need to be able to access the same thing without barriers. And that's a huge part of what we're actually trying to get towards.
Yeah.
You get lost in a lot of the fluff and we're building things and we have high aspirations.
Yeah, it sounds really busy over there. So yeah, with lots going on. So look, I guess the next thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is, I speak to a lot of clients and, they talk about wanting to get off the search drug. So they know it's something that drives their business, but how do I sort of migrate away from being so completely reliant on search to drive business outcomes? I'm going to get two people to answer this. I'm going to get Praful to talk about this because he's worked with a number of clients that have shown the relationship between television and search and how these two channels work together, because it's not an either or. And then I think, Sean, I might get you to pipe in as well, because I know you've had an experience through your time tracking and then the measurement across devices to get sort of a first-hand view on that. So I might start with you, Praful.
I think there are no surprises. We all the time see that TV and search work together. But where it becomes more interesting is there are still offline media agency and there is a search department, and sometimes you see that what's my monthly search budget and when is the TV happening. Sometimes there is no integration between search and TV. So those guys who understand the value of what TV drives to search, they can definitely make TV and search both work harder, and especially those guys who collaborate with each other, that not only in terms of look and feel or messaging, but they look at each and every granular data for both TV and search and optimize it as well. So we always heard about the last click model from Google, but much behind that, what's the role of TV driving to the search and try and adjust the budget. That's where the real efficiency comes to. And a lot of advertisers are realizing that, and I think the one word collaboration with both the department gives you the harder, better ways.
Yeah.
So we saw the High Pages
Yeah.
case study before, and it won't surprise anyone here that Google took credit for all of that increase in sign-ups, in conversions, in that fantastic business results, according to Google Analytics and all of Google's tracking, came from search and Google's advertising. Wasn't to do with TV at all. And in, just today, this morning on the Today Show, it's looking at, Google again is taking credit. So I think this calls to the wider question about tracking and actually collecting. I'm going to go back to data. I think data is king, not content or context. So that's me. Data's king. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, you wouldn't. No advertiser at the moment is launching a digital campaign without any tracking or performance measurement. Yet for TV, which can be just as big a budget, there's very little comparative tracking at all, and the technology is there to do it. So we regularly see that all of the benefit, all of the business increase that TV is contributing to advertisers is being claimed by Google and Facebook and digital channels, because the attribution, the tracking is only including digital. Yeah. So that calls to a wider issue. Yeah. But fundamentally, if you can track everything together, you have one platform. It's all transparent. You can actually, you yourself, your teams can actually be looking at that data and making informed decisions yourself. Then you can actually start measuring what is the right balance between channels. And again, if you have a real-time feedback loop, you can actually start testing and refining over time. It's not a set and forget approach at all.
Yeah, it's so I actually did some work with the High Pages team. We did an econometric model to isolate the contribution, and it wasn't all Google. I can tell you that definitively when we looked at it the first time. But what we did find was that the two worked really well together, and they were able to reduce their reliance on branded search terms. Yep. And go more with branded search terms and reduce their reliance on generic search, which was actually better for their business. So I think all of these things contribute together. So I guess that probably leads me to my next question, which is around, I think a lot of people in this room come from television industry, and is too much being spent on digital? Because I think a lot of people say, it's just being thrown there, and there are a lot of questions around measurement in digital as well. Walled gardens, you can't combine everything together. It's not a unique sort of way to measure. There's different metrics, different durations, etc. So I'll start with you, Sean, but I might also get you to pipe in as well, Josh, because you're sort of working in the digital area. Have we gone too far? Is it now the right time, with all of the innovation going on, for TV to claw back, a leadership position?
I think that's a great question. Obviously, there's no blanket answer for every type of advertiser. Have we gone too far? Well, what's happening? Budgets are being cut. People are looking to the numbers, and they're trying to optimize using the numbers that they've got. And what's happened with digital, that we know it plays generally in that lower part of the funnel, where TV plays through the entire customer journey. We optimizing, and that is a self-fulfilling prophecy to cycle that just minimizes bringing new people in. So I think for most advertisers, I think generally people will be saying that potentially you've gone too far. Yeah. And really you need to be looking at growing the funnel at the top, but that needs to be on a test and refine basis. So you can do that if you're very brave, do what High Pages did and be very, very confident. I think most advertisers, most companies will be much happier actually doing it slowly, but having the right information to do that in an informed way.
Yeah. Do you want to add on to that, Josh? Have you got a perspective around?
I think the temptation to go down the performance path it's a bit more comfortable for most of us, right? Most agencies no disrespect to anyone, but most agencies are afforded a particular piece of work, which is kind of the fault of a brand, because you push everyone into buckets because it's easier to manage. So I want you to drive all these things for me. I want you to do it at this cost, and my budget's going down. It's not going up, but my targets are going up and not coming down. So there's a problem within that too. The other part is these things are not looked at as a collective. They're looked at in isolation, which is challenging. So again, you don't have a uniform way to measure things. And I know there's obviously good work that's being done, but it doesn't really solve the complete piece. Brands need to be able to contribute to this with their own sales performance and other things like that. And so it's an intricate and complicated piece, right? And if you're keeping people in isolation or working in a fractured way, it's very hard because there's an agenda and I have to save my skin. I've got to get revenue for my company and so on. And I'm making a very labored point here. I apologize. I'll kind of wrap it up. One example is I met an insurance company recently. We were talking to them about investing in TV because it's good. And they were articulating a business problem around the fact that they're acquiring customers and they have a very high churn rate, as in like close to 60% within the first 6 months, or just 80% or something like that. That spoke volumes to me. So you're obviously doing really good work around hyper incentivization to get someone to swap as a policyholder, but then you're not doing a lot of the work that goes around to make sure that they stay secure with your brand. And there's only a few mediums to be able to do that. So yes, you can send emails that are super targeted and super personalized, and you can do things in digital, and you can quarantine your budget and allocate it X, Y, and Z ways. But if your audience, your customer, or someone is not actually appreciating your brand, the value that they're getting from your brand, or knowing how to interact with your brand, and feeling like, hey, that's money well spent, there's a very high probability that they're going to churn. Yeah. The other part is if you're a marketer or an agency or anyone who's managing a budget on behalf of someone, how much harder do the performance channels have to work if they have to do the legwork of the brand? If you're doing a lot of the brand work that's consistent, and it could be 60-40, 50-50, I think it's 100-100. And there's different ebbs and flows based on where your business is at, what your key business problems are, etc., that will help you turn things up or down because you've got levers, and digital just gives you a bit more ease of doing that.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to pivot a minute and ask a question of you, Brett. So today we've seen a whole lot of new ways for brands to engage with TV networks. And historically, one of the challenges was having the budgets that were big enough to access television inventory or engage with some of those publishers. So, you guys are providing an entry point and a new and innovative way to bring clients in. How are you finding the clients? What are the categories and clients that are starting to use this new technology? And why are they doing this now when they hadn't previously done it beyond cost?
Yeah, well first of all, the good news is that addressable can work across all categories, and we're seeing that in our client base. In terms of clients and why they're sort of starting to get interested in addressable TV, it may overlap a little bit with the last question, but the kind of three separate buckets I would put them in. Firstly is your traditional TV buyers who are seeing sort of pressures on certain demographics in television. Whether that be just not being measured anymore in linear television, and they go in search of that reach somewhere else. Traditionally, before Finecast and potentially BVOD, they may have gone to platforms to search for cheap reach. However, they also enjoy the quality of television. So we're seeing people sort of almost come back to television in a way because we work across the BVOD ecosystem and make it viable again by sort of reaggregating a fragmenting channel. So that sort of covers a sort of a trend in, I would say, TV buyers. The second piece is the buyers who have never sort of been on television before, and now that sort of entry point is there. You can sort of get away a very localized campaign on TV, which you would never have been able to do before as a buyer, or a sort of even anywhere below metro buying can actually happen now in addressable TV. So there's a whole different, and it doesn't have to actually. The third one is it doesn't have to be sort of segmented, super segmented in that sense. You still can get national TV buyers who are going for broad reach but want creative variation in where they want certain creatives to run. We'll probably hear a little bit more about that when we get to Uber Eats, for example. I know I have a slot later on. Those examples are sort of give you an idea of how it definitely works across all categories, because I think each category has challenges in each of those spaces. And when you think of new entrants to TV, many people think it's small businesses or that sort of area, which I think is definitely a huge untapped category. But also think about luxury categories that it's a little bit wasteful to, if you've got a super luxury watch, to go do a Metro buy or an Eastern Seaboard buy on TV. Now you can actually sort of look at household income as a sort of key audience to buy against in an addressable fashion.
Right. So it's probably more of a question over to you, Josh, but how do you go and find them? I mean, we're all here to get a prosperous television industry into the future, bring new people in, inventories being created, opportunities being created. How do you go and tell people about it? Because, in this room, we're all engaging already. How do you find those new SME businesses like hipages that are ready for the next step?
We have a big sales team. Look, I think you have to do the job well. Do the job well, people talk about it, and it will attract future investment. It's also good to talk about the success pieces, like the hipages example. I think that's fantastic because that helps build confidence in, hey, that's not a channel that's going to cost me money. It's a channel that's going to help drive a business outcome for me, whether I'm small or big. I think we as broadcasters have a responsibility to also make it easier to trade with us. Some of our peers have done that already. We're doing it now. Our product's called Buy 10. And essentially, we just need to make the trading mechanisms a bit simpler and remove things like minimum orders that are prohibitive. There are challenges around that. It's not an overnight thing. But if we can make ourselves as accessible to people as possible, that's great. Every publisher, every media owner is going to struggle with things like remnant inventory, things that you cannot get away. There are going to be audiences that are fitting for small to medium businesses. And if we can reduce our own cost of delivering those audiences for people and making them available without being a restrictive entry point, by all means, why can we not do that? So I think there's a space for the big end of town where we can attract and kind of build confidence and go, hey, diversify your campaign spend. TV's still good, but maybe your mix across traditional formats versus emerging formats is starting to evolve. And then for small businesses, it's giving them a nice big premium screen, which is really good for some of the things around reach and premium, and making them a bit more accessible, especially in the smaller markets. It's the most feedback I've seen since especially we've been building this stuff, is that we're a little bit out of reach, or it's harder to trade programmatic or direct or the other way around. Whatever it is, there's barriers there that probably don't need to be there. And we can probably tidy those up and make it a bit easier.
Yeah, great.
I just wanted to add that I think that's where the measurement play a very important role. For example, I'm giving you US example, but we work with Comcast and NBC, and there are about 2,000 car dealers. And some of the small car dealers, when they start seeing a small dashboard with what's the uplift in traffic, how many people came into the door, how many people downloaded brochures and all, and they see the value TV is working, and sometimes they sold out on the inventory and all. And if that start working for one dealer, it spreads, and that's how you get more and more small businesses are adopting to using the addressable TV.
Yeah. So I'll flip it to the reverse. I think one of the main benefits of television and why clients come back is you get to mass audiences quickly, right? So probably one of the fastest ways to build brand awareness in a really fast way. And then in the context of now, the fact that you can buy a segment, a postcode, a specific psychographic kind of thing or whatever, how do you manage the balance between delivering the benefits of the mass audience, but also not over-targeting to a point where the client goes, oh, shit, I only spoke to 10 people. So how do you kind of balance that out? If anyone wants to pick up that one, it's probably not a...
Well, I'll pick up after you. Yeah. I think the massive opportunity, and we've seen this particularly in the European markets for addressable, is not to hyper-target, but it's actually to serve different creative. So you're still getting the reach of TV, but it's addressable TV to actually improve context, to not only the content on TV, but the profile of that individual person, so where they are in the customer funnel. So I think it's not necessarily one or the other. I think it's how do we actually best use TV as the fantastic medium it is.
Brett, you go.
Without saying exactly the same thing, I would say we do spend a lot of time, certainly with not so much with TV buying communities, but certainly with digital buying communities who do want to target way down because they live at the bottom of the funnel. I would say that the place we're at right now is, TV is great for mass awareness. We're now working the middle of the funnel quite well with addressable TV, which doesn't mean like super hyper targeting. The creative example was a great one. So yes, so it's perfect for scale.
Right.
It does its job.
Yeah.
And you can use it, if you still need scale, use the context. But if you want to work consideration, go there. Actually, we developed sort of custom brand lift studies with Kantar Lightspeed, and you can't get panelists away when you're super targeted as well. So you need to actually operate at some level of scale to start hitting your brand lift metrics, or even if you work in consideration, it all sort of falls in your original brief, I guess. But if you want to sort of replicate a Google search ad, this is not the way.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to that measurement question, doesn't it? So then in that case, how do you measure? If you can't find people who've seen the ad to talk, how do you measure to say what's working and what's not?
Yeah, well, apart from, we had to develop that part when we launched Finecast, because there was literally, where we work is actually just on the big screen. So it sort of falls right between OzTam and Nielsen if you're working in between those worlds. So we had to develop something with Kantar Lightspeed to get any sort of measurement there. And apart from that, it's working with very clever agencies who run econometrics, have access to client data if they share that data, to actually work, match market testing, where you run campaigns that are on and some are off. That's sort of where you need to work. And to a certain extent, you're getting away from media metrics when you do that, which is kind of sometimes more valuable to a CMO who really only cares about whether they shifted an opinion or they sold something.
Yeah, I mean, most of the CMOs I talk to aren't excited about the coming of VOZ. They know it. Some of them don't even know what that is. What they really want to do, and I think it's a great initiative, by the way. I'm not detracting from that at all. What they want to know is, are you going to sell more? Are you going to get me more customers? Are you going to help me with my retention? Like, what is that going to look like? So I think it's a, measurement for them. It's that. It's dollars.
Yep.
It's the tills ringing in a retail environment. So look, we're almost out of time. What I just wanted to do was go, 3 to 5 years, assuming you're all in the same gig and everything's going great, what do you want to be saying? Where do you want to be? Like, what's kind of your vision for that future with innovation in the context of television and what you see for the industry? Who wants to go first?
I would still say it's a measurement and continue to prove the value of TV, and obviously it will be directly compared with the worlds of Google and Facebook, and definitely there is a huge potential for catch-up TV or addressable segment. So those areas are going to be, so TV will be more ROI driven rather than, obviously there is an awareness component, but I look at it's going to be more and more activation channels.
Okay. Right. Josh, you've got CBS there filling the pockets with money to do amazing things.
Viacom CBS.
Viacom CBS.
Look, for us, I think I would love to see a much more established premium ad opportunity. So where we can integrate content with brands and do that really nicely, cleanly in a measurable way, and you can target and so on. So I think the stuff that we've started with UI is the launch pad for that, but I think that will be a far more embedded capability across all of our digital properties. The other thing I think would be very helpful is if we have greater equality across each of the broadcasters, so that we're trading in a similar way for the fundamental things, and that there's transparency across each of them. Because then you put your money where your mouth is, where content is king and data is queen and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think if we can remove some of the barriers and the friction and the inconsistencies across all of us, we'd be in a really good place. And I think some of the stuff that Brett and his team are doing are really good things to catapult us into that way.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the next few years is going to be super exciting for TV. And I say that because TV, when it comes from the data perspective, has been so far behind digital. That is a completely green field. Every single conversation we have, and we've been around for 5 years, it just opens new opportunities for actually improving the product. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're an advertiser all the way through to a broadcaster, a network, or an industry body. Once you start unlocking insights by having better data, faster data, then there's so much more that you can do. And that goes across it doesn't matter what device or what platform. So that's why I think in a few years' time, I have no idea. The pace is going so fast.
Yeah.
But what I do know is it's super exciting, and we're going to see huge improvements in transparency, in accountability, in understanding, and in test and learn and refine.
Great, thanks. And we're 15 seconds over time and cutting into lunch, but if you could just
sorry,
finish
everyone. Yeah, I mean, our vision for the future is Finecast is software, is TV software, but broaden that out. I think I would hope that the TV sort of industry, at least the BVOD players, would see that as well. I saw the hypothetical platform up there before, and I thought I'd sort of tick that off in my mind in terms of if we can start moving that way, and we're seeing really great collaboration, more and more, it gets better and better every year between the broadcasters and clients, that we end up with a software platform for TV that does, ticks off measurement, creative, and it sort of evolves to that point.
Great. Well, thank you very much for participating. It's time to break for lunch now, everybody, but if you could just give the panel a round of applause. Thank you. Cheers.